Ginny and AJ would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land across the countries now known as Australia and the United States of America. These lands that were never ceded but violently stolen from the oldest living cultures and civilization on this planet. We would also like to pay our respects to the elders past, present, and emerging, for they hold the memories, traditions, culture, and hopes of a brighter future for us all. It's also important that we acknowledge the Gumaroi, Barkinji, Lachi Lachi, Birigubba, and Waka Waka ancestors and elders of our bloodlines, whose shoulders we stand on. Without them, we do not exist. It's through them that we carry our pride, strength, and resiliency. We must always remember that under this concrete and asphalt, these countries were and always will be on traditional Aboriginal, Australian, and Native American land.
Hello, everybody. We are so excited, as usual, to come back for yet again another Unapologetically Blak episode. This episode, again, is pushing the envelope. It's a topic that Ginny and myself has had to process, feeling comfortable enough to talk about publicly. And that's another thing I want you guys to get as our viewers, guys. These topics, as well as you as our listeners, but these topics push our own envelope. They push us out of our comfort zone. They make us really vulnerable. But in order to create that change, in order to encourage you guys to be vulnerable with us, we have to do it as well. Now, this is going to be greatly revealed in this episode's title, which is Let's Talk About Self-Pleasure. Okay, let's get into that, Ginny. How are you feeling about this topic before we embark on this journey? We did our first episode, which was Let's Talk About Sex. How are you feeling about this, I guess, second segment?
Yeah, well, I'm really excited about our guests, who are Caroline and Annie from Feel Flossy. This episode, they reached out to us a while ago and talked to us about how they could help, help us as well through our journeys of sexual health and pleasure, and that's what led us to this conversation today. So I think I'm excited because we've done our research, girls. We have done some research, but also I'm nervous because, again, the stigmatization around self-pleasure and sex for not only just probably cultural reasons for us, but also just as women and young women, probably. I feel a little bit scared. I feel a little bit nervous, but, I'm here with you. So what could go wrong?
Yes. And that's the thing, guys. Feel comfortable to yarn to someone you feel safe with. I feel safe with Ginny. She felt safe with me. And guys, the other thing is there's a big difference between talking about things publicly and talking about things privately. And I think that's what we touch on in this episode is understanding, guys. Find your safe circle, find people that you feel comfortable talking about it with, but feel comfortable within yourself, because I feel like that's another big thing you and I, Ginny, over the last 8 months have felt more comfortable with, is registering that on our own levels about this idea of sex, but also sexual exploration as well, personally.
And we just want to, I guess, encourage our listeners or people who are listening to this episode that the journey that you're on is the journey that's best for you. We don't want to make you feel like you need to catch up or slow down. What's best for you. We're talking as honestly as we can possibly be about our own sexual health, sexual pleasure journeys. I think this episode will be a good one. We have, like I said, we have the girls from Feel Flossy. They are a Brisbane-based women-owned sex toy company who reached out to us and have been really massive supporters of us at Unapologetically Blak. And we're so excited about working with them and also having them on this episode.
It's so true. And I love that you say that, Ginny, because So what was I going to say? See, guys, I'm getting all nervous. I'm getting nervous already. We're not going to sit here and break down what we mean by cultural. We're not going to sit here and tell you what our families believe or what is our cultural understanding of sex or the topic of sex, how we learn about it being cultural men and women's business, because every single family, every single tribe, every single person has their own cultural understanding. But what we do need to say, guys, is our cultural understanding is also, or mine is, influenced by colonization. You know, I have been directly influenced by white presence or perspective in my identity as a woman that is Aboriginal in Australia, that has been raised in Australia. And I want you guys to remember that, as well as that, look at the impact of culture, but also colonization, because white supremacy don't play that shit. So speaking of white supremacy, Ginny, we're going to get stuck into it. So I've got a little list of facts, guys, that I had no idea about, facts that are going to help you understand the sex toy industry, because there's a lot to know. So are you ready for these facts, Ginny?
I'm ready.
Ready. Let's get them ready. So the sex toy industry is worth $15 billion.
Shut up.
15 billion, guys. And in the expected annual year that has been COVID, it's expected to grow by, I believe, another $2.2 billion.
That's
alone.
Crazy.
So 50 Shades of Grey. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah, I have.
I have not seen it. So
watch it.
That's what everyone tells me. So 50 Shades of Grey pushed directly a massive boom in the industry. So a large film and a very, successful one, but I also believe book originally has also contributed to the destigmatization of sex toys. Do they use sex toys in the movie?
I can't even remember.
But I guess it's like
you don't see
and all that
it.
shit.
You don't. Yeah, it's more like handcuffs and whips and stuff. I don't think you actually see sex toys.
But does he like grab one or like refer to one? Like, is there any correlation?
I mean, he must. I can't remember.
Come on, Ginny. I want to know the details.
Listen, I'm gonna watch it again tonight.
Okay.
I'll watch it again.
I need to watch it. I don't know why I'm not watching it.
But
But there again, guys, is the stigmatization. I have not seen 50 Shades of Grey. Let us know if you've seen it or if you haven't and why.
Yes,
I just always think, oh, Gam, and I don't want to watch them white fellas up there making out. No, go away. That's what
Well, and you know what? I think it's one thing when you're like you're watching a movie maybe, and then there's a sex scene. You're like, okay, we're here now, like it's happening. But it's another thing to know that it is essentially all about sex. You know what I mean?
So
I think then you're consenting to.
I know.
And I feel uncomfortable at times watching sex scenes in movies, depending on who I'm with or what's happening.
Yeah, I just even when I'm by myself, I'm just like.
But do you know what I think that is as well? Like growing up Black as well. Like as soon as something even slightly sexual came on the screen, my foster mum and foster dad were like, "Hey, close your eyes." Close your eyes.
Close your eyes, and then mute it. It's like, oh my god. But my thing is this: that little girl don't look like me. That woman in 50 Shades of Grey, like she don't look like. No way, honey. That woman is like my leg, literally one. She's probably about the same height as my motherfucking leg.
A very winter pale leg of yours.
I cannot like fucking
an arm
goddamn.
Of mine. This pale arm that hasn't seen the sun in however long. That's what sister girl looks
She's
like.
so little. She's so small. She's so white. She's so weak. Like, girl, we need something. Girl, she can handle herself. Like, God, she's the definition of damsel stress. When I saw that girl, I said, "Are you 15?" No, she make jokes.
Oh.
I did truly, Ginny. Yeah. With the bangs and all that, I just thought, is this like a school? No, that's enough. We're going to get into a review of that another time because he's hot. So another fact about the sex toy industry is not me coming for actresses, but couples make a huge portion of sex toys on the market. So a lot of sex toys that are being purchased are between couples.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah, and a new thing which has increased this massive industry, guys. So we're talking $15 billion, right? Is online sales. So the fact now that relatively new, you can actually purchase sex toys online and get them delivered to your house rather than having to go into a store. Because when we were young, or like when we were 18, you could not buy sex toys online. You barely could get clothes delivered, let alone sex toys. So I think that's incredible.
Yeah, and thank God, because the whole act of going into an adult store, I don't like where I grew up as well. so I went to Morayfield State High School for the last year of my schooling, maybe the last 2 years. And there's the one sex store that I do remember that was near this, like at the shops, and it's like all blacked out and it's got like a CD sign. And thank God now that you can do this stuff online.
True.
Yeah.
I've never been in a store. I've never been in them. And I've heard a lot of horror stories. So I heard a lot of stories because I'm born later in the year. I was born in August. So a lot of my friends that turned 18 earlier in my year, and they were girls of color as well. I went to a very racially mixed school. So a lot of them went, the sex toys as one by one turned 18. I'm born at the end of August too.
Right.
They had horrific experiences. And I was just always like,
you're like, okay, I'm definitely not going now.
No way. And hello, I'm a 6 foot big black girl. Like, you're gonna see me walking in and out of that store. Anyone
like,
from
AJ,
Newtown?
AJ, I see you.
What is that big black girl doing in there? The fuck? And of course, that one black fellow across the street. Everyone knows the sex store on King Street near Newtown train station. Everyone knows that joint. You've got to walk up this big staircase. You look like you're going to slide down it. I would be the person slide down that with a bag or a handful of sex. No way. And there's always black fellas in Newtown. No fucking way.
Coming out with the black bag. Everyone's like, well,
No.
you can only assume.
And see, I cannot. So I've never been in one, and I have no desires to be honest.
No, me neither.
So our next question is, again, like I was mentioning earlier, during social distancing and the pandemic, sex toy sales have boomed. So the fact that people weren't able to hook up, people weren't able to meet new people, this new industry has had a massive boom. Now, another interesting fact, some countries have actually banned sex toys. So you can't buy them, but you also cannot bring them into their country.
Wow.
So some of these countries are Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, India, and even the Maldives. So that kind of shocked me because it's like everyone talks about how amazing it is for
let's go to the Maldives. And especially like romantically, you go with your man. That's what I was
going to say, like couples and stuff. So you can't take sex toys to those countries, and even like Thailand, because obviously they're very known for their sex industry and things of that nature. You can't bring sex toys in there.
That's crazy.
You can't sell them.
Wow.
So the UAE have all banned sex toys, and as we know, those unfortunately, though, a lot of those areas have very strict sexual or actual relationship
laws and
legislation. And the same thing with India as well, like premarital sex and things like that. So I think it's unfortunate that they have strict regulations around relationships, but also sex toys. And the website where I got this from stated that if you do enter these countries with these sex toys, they will be confiscated. But if you have a large amount, like you are planning to distribute them, you can actually be charged. So it's really scary.
I put a mental note: do not go to Thailand with sex toys.
No, honey.
That's
and
scary.
if you go to the Maldives with your man for your honeymoon, leave your vibrator at home, sister girl. I'm trying to get locked up.
Nah.
Thank you.
It's worse enough here. Potentially be
locked
up for something stupid. Don't go to the Maldives with a sex toy.
Don't do it. Or even goddamn India. Like, oh, lordy. I ain't trying to fly all that way and then get. So speaking of flying all that way, we are gonna get ready into our next segment of this interview, which is our incredible guest. So listen in. So welcome, guys. We're so excited to have our two guests today, and we've got a little series of questions to get stuck into. But before we do, we want our guests to take some time to, tell us a bit about themselves. We've got Annie and Caroline here today, just to yarn about their brand Flossy, but also importantly, their unique journeys to owning a business in the sex toy industry, and also as women in this industry, taking control of these narratives and this space and influence over what it means to purchase sex toys, but also own a business in the industry. So we'll kick off with Caroline. What inspired you to start entering this business? What drew your attention to it, and what also, has inspired you to feel comfortable enough to talk about this topic, if that makes sense?
Thank you so much for having us. We've been excited all week to get to chat with the two of you.
Awesome.
So for me, I've always been so passionate about reproductive health and wellness. So I work and have a background working as a doula. So helping deliver babies, helping moms and new parents into postpartum, helping prepare for pregnancy. And I'm really fascinated around how we can support transitional points in women and birthing people's lives around feeling like they're, you know, empowered and supported on a journey that's really pivotal. There's so much there. And so I've done that work kind of outside of this. And I really feel passionate about teaching people to really own their power and their purpose in life. And that a lot of that comes from unpacking for me around women's health and well-being and the information that we can have there. So when I kind of into the sex toy industry, never even crossed my mind as something that was something I would do, and had a terribly seedy experience after moving from the States. I'm originally from Seattle, Washington. Moved over to Australia. My sex toy vibrator fried with the wattage conversion, and I went into the seediest sex toy. It's killed 2 hair curlers and a vibrator.
Wow.
My partner was out of town traveling, and I went into the worst. It was it was the worst time. I went into a seedy sex shop around here to buy a new replacement and just had the world's worst experience. You can imagine your classic sex shop, like the smell, the mustiness, the dusty lube containers, the wall of vibrators, and had a chat with Annie after this experience because we had become really close friends, and kind of like, why is there not a space that women can go to that feels approachable and informative and not at all run by what men think our pleasure is or what sex toys should look like or how we should experience sex, and is for someone that's not as comfortable learning about these things or had never had maybe a sex education that even mentioned pleasure or you know, masturbation for women or what that might look like. So we started having a lot of conversations around that. And then a year later, here's Flossy.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
so
funny.
Exciting.
It's funny that you say that because as you were speaking, I was like, you know, when I think of sex shops, like sex toy shops, adult stores, I literally think about when I was like 8, when I first turned 18, and, you know, growing up, I'd never really heard of, well, you know, sex toys or anything like that. And I remember being 18 and then being like, and your friends being like, we should go into the store. Because you were never, you know, you knew what a sex.
You're literally describing my first experience.
Literally, you knew what a sex store was, and that weird people came out of it every now and then. You'd see them and be like, ew, what are they doing there? But also, like, so when I turned 18, we were like, let's go into the sex store. This one in the Valley, across the road from Central Station. If anyone who's from Brisbane,
the same one that I went into.
There's one right across the AJ. When you go to Brisbane, you have to do it. It's horrible.
This is crazy.
And I remember being like, my friends being like, let's go in there and see what happens. And, you know, the whole time we were just freaked out, the whole situation. And there was like this weird guy behind the counter, like, what are you girls doing in here? And I was like, oh my God, what is happening? And then as I got older as well, thinking about like, now I'm interested in how my body works or what feels good. Now I'm like, my idea of like, I have to go back to that store to find something that's going to make me feel good when my first, you know, it's a weird situation. So I love that you could speak on that because it's so important. I think not even just, I think Indigenous women will have that experience. I think a lot of Australian women they're such seedy places.
100%. That was my first experience. Was just I was 18 and I was with some girlfriends and we were like, let's go to a sex shop, and we did that, and it was okay. Like, at least the lady behind the counter was very respectful and didn't come across as seedy. But like, it's very confronting seeing like, I don't know, like a 10-inch dildo like just in your face there, and then it says like, oh, for novelty use only. Okay, all right. So then, what's it for? Like, why can't we have a space that feels it's normalized and it doesn't have like the typical like fluorescent lighting and that office type carpet that's kind of like disheveled, and you know,
Been
we
there
want it
how
to
long?
be yeah, exactly. And like all the products that are there, like they've probably been on the shelf since, I don't know, the first opened, because all the packaging has gone yellow.
So true.
Yeah, and we were like kind of just imagining like, oh, it'd be really awesome if we had a space that was kind of like an Apple store, like a Mecca or something,
Right.
like a beauty store.
Yeah.
And we actually didn't like start on Flossy straight away. We're like, yeah, it's a great idea, let's just like crack into it. It was over a few months, so we're like, let's just do this, because like if no one else is gonna, well, someone else is gonna do it, so it may as well be us.
Right.
So
And
true.
we want to be able to create that environment and kind of be able to like set the standard of like what sex stores should look like through a female gaze, or a more feminine gaze.
I love that.
So that's leading us into our next question. I guess we'll get you to answer that, Annie. So have you experienced any major setbacks in the male dominated industry? And you are also invited to contribute to, Caroline, because what we want to explain to our viewers listening to this is like a passion project for you guys. So, you know, we've gone back and forth in yarning. So that's a big difference between like an industrialized or a massive industry or economically. You guys are really conscious with your brand. So you're clashing with this, you know, male dominated industry is what you just described. Like that's manifested throughout Australia. But have you experienced any setbacks in your personal life, but also in this business venture, if that makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, our major setback is definitely the competition that's in this space. So, you know, there are a lot of brands out there that come across as female empowerment, but they're actually brands that are run by men, and they say that they're a female sexual wellness brand, but it's run by men, and they have less morals than us. So what they do is they go into Alibaba, order like a vibrator for $1, and then they'll mark up that price 200%. And then market that as female empowerment, and they'll pay influencers like upwards of $600 per post. So you know, and the thing is like $600 is a lot for like just posing with vibrators. So of course a lot of people are going to say yes to that, and then that's how they get their like diverse audience. But when you look at like their stuff, they're not actually diverse, and they talk about intersectional feminism, but I don't actually think that they know what that really means, because when like Black Lives Matter and like the anti-Asian hate campaign was going on, they didn't speak about it at all. It's like radio silence. So I think that's a major setback for us, is that we have invested so much time and energy into creating genuine content that is about conversations that we're actually having, and not being it all about selling vibrators. We aren't about that. Yes, we do sell them on our website as a tool, but it's not the be all end all. Like, you don't need to have a vibrator to feel sexually liberated at all. I think that comes from within, and it's a mindset as well. And that's not what the male dominated, that's not what the your typical sex toy company is doing. And the major setback is that they're obviously succeeding very well, because you know, they've got hundreds of thousands of followers and they're making a lot of money. And then you've got us that we're not really making money, but that's not such a big deal. But it can be a bit discouraging, because I feel like we have a genuine brand, company, and ethos. And it's impossible to really compete with a company that's on such a big scale. So that's what we found is the most challenging, is competing with these huge conglomerates that we know aren't here for us. They're not. They're here for themselves.
Right.
So
that
true.
money, honey.
Oh,
so
yeah.
True. And I think that ties in to like a really big thing is on your page as soon as you go in. So you click on the link, guys, and you enter their website, but it says say hello to shame-free pleasure right across the screen. So for me as a buyer, you don't see that type of wording on a sex toy page. Normally when you enter and it's like 20% off here, or try our new product, or try this. So that alone in your branding sets you apart. So again, I think guys, when listening to this, obviously we're here to promote and encourage you to purchase from Flossy, but also understand when you are purchasing from the industry, make sure you're buying into a brand that is conscious, you know, make sure you're buying into a brand that has ethics and integrity, and support women as well. And that's what we try to encourage over on Unapologetically Blak.
And we don't want people to necessarily buy from us. They don't have to buy from us, but I think it's really important that people research the brand and exactly where the dollar is going, because you vote with your dollar. And if you are paying for these products for a huge company that only really care about making money and not about the people that are buying these products, there's better in other places to spend it. There's heaps of female-run companies in Australia that sell sex toys and have amazing education. We're not the only ones. There are others that are doing we're doing our own variation of what they're doing. But honestly, like, I would prefer people to buy from their companies or our companies rather than these like huge companies that are run by men.
Right. So look into it.
Even just even just the thought of prioritizing pleasure is a whole concept in and of itself, that oftentimes when we are purchasing sex toys, it's from, you know, Amazon, the cheapest place online. You saw someone that maybe had a bullet vibrator, and but even then before that, it's even having conversations about, like, if you have never bought a vibrator before, what's going on around that? Like, unpacking, where is there shame around that? Is there some sort of like upbringing? Is there whatever it might be that contributes to how you view your own experience of pleasure? It's not that buying a vibrator is going to be like this quick ticket, you know, when you see someone posing with a vibrator that's like, I masturbated, is that somehow sexual liberation?
Right.
So a lot of us, the conversation is around unpacking what even happens before someone purchases a pleasure product, let alone then valuing it at a level that's a quality pleasure product that's specifically designed by a company. That's why we only stock brands that are either founded by women or people with vulvas, or have specifically designed toys for people with vulvas. So it's like, it goes beyond just buying a product that has an ethical backing, but really looking into how we prioritize our own pleasure to begin with, and where that might come from. So.
I was also gonna say that the thing that I love the most, AJ and I were lucky enough to get some toys from Flossy. And I love mine. I don't know about you, Jeff.
Absolutely.
I saw your review, Ginny. It was very glowing.
Yes, listen, it was a great review, and that's what I was gonna say. What I love about the website is it's very like clean. And like AJ, you were saying, when you go into another sex toy, I have gone and looked for other sex toys previously, and you, like you said, AJ, inundated with like flashiness and like 40% off, and there's just like hundreds of it's so overwhelming. And that's what I loved about Flossy is that, you know, you don't have you don't have hundreds of thousands of products. You have things that you guys kind of vow by, or like you stand by. And the reviews were amazing, because I did leave a review for mine, but I thought it was amazing, like going through and reading other people's reviews. And I was like, okay, so I mean, if you're, especially as an Indigenous woman, right? Like we have mentioned on our previous episode, I don't have a lot of experience in being taught how to appreciate my body and the different ways that you can do that. So when you're inundated with millions of products, it's just like, well, what do you do? Like, where do you start? What, you know? And I love I love that your website kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Hones in on being able to choose and you have a quiz section. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw it too. Yeah,
I love that. You could click.
This is all really amazing feedback. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. I love that you could do the quiz and it was going to tell you, because I think that's just something that a lot of other sex toy brands are not doing. You know, it's just like, here are a million things, and this is what
yeah,
you could
exactly.
do.
Just sort by our best sellers, and then their best sellers is like some like really complicated contraption. You're like, I'm not buying that.
This looks like it's gonna hurt.
So true. I know it does, though. It really puts you off like that. Because we're not stupid. We've been brought up in a commodified society, so we know when something's being shoved down your throat. Oh, my metaphor. But you can tell when, you know,
No
what
pun
I mean?
intended.
No pun intended, God damn it. But you can tell, you know, and I love that about the website. But getting into our third question, because this is getting into it. So the sex toy industry has only been relatively accepted in mainstream society. And early we have been yarning back and forth about that idea of being stigmatized or being attached to owning a sex toy and using it. So can you tell us again, as women and owning a brand that is encouraging women to have, you know, a sense of enlightenment in relation to sexual health, their bodies, but also purchasing products, how have you worked through this stigmatization, and how would you encourage women to work through it as well, if that makes sense? Maybe some tips and tricks.
Well, I will kick off that answer. So, I mean, I still have a huge stigma in my personal life around sexual wellness. For example, like none of my family know about this, which is so funny because we've been on articles and stuff, but they have absolutely no clue that I've got Flossy, other than my mum and my sisters. That's it. They are none the wiser, and that's because this conversation is still really hard for me, and especially I grew up in quite a conservative family. Not my mum's not conservative, but I mean my grandma and my great grandma, they took care of me a lot as a child, and they're very Catholic. So yeah, talking about sex, it was basically like, just don't do it. So if they found out about it, I think she would have a heart attack. So I'm just not going to even go there with her. And the thing is, if my family found out, they all gossip, so they would definitely find out.
I know
they did. So
and I just want to interject, because what you're doing and telling this story is talking about keeping yourself safe at the end of the day. You know, it's not anyone's business. Like, you don't have to wave a flag or make, you know, a Facebook post. I love that. And sharing this with our viewership. So please continue, but thank you for even sharing that with us.
Yeah, well, I think it's really important that other people know you don't have to like be like this super sexual being to prioritize your pleasure. Like, to be honest, I did not masturbate until I was like 23.
Yeah, relatable.
I actually I had no idea about this concept. I was like, wait, you can give yourself orgasms? That's crazy. And it wasn't until my partner was like, you should really get a vibrator. And I was like, oh no, I don't need that. Like, that's not me. Like,
that's what
I don't
you're
need
for,
that,
babe.
Yeah, exactly. I get all my satisfaction just from you. So he's the one that actually prompted me to get one. And then I only had like this tiny little bullet for like years. Well, I actually had to get like a few because it was so shit that I had to keep replacing it anyway. Because I got like the cheapest thing that was on one of those websites. And so, I mean, to answer this very long-winded question, to reduce the stigma, it's all about just talking about it. And we don't want to focus too much on selling the products. In fact, like when I look at our feed, I'm like, oh, Caroline, we should probably promote like one of our products or something. We haven't done much of that. So we are more about talking about these issues that we have when it comes to talking about it with our partners or our families. You know, we touch on things like consent, STIs, abortions. We want to talk about women's health in general, not just when it comes to pleasure.
Your brand has been so supportive of our content. And when we say that, guys, it's not like this gammon little, you've been very supportive of Unapologetically Blak, supporting us push the envelope and talk about topics such as sex, but also other things, guys. So all the content that we've created around, you know, the education system and whatnot. So that support has meant a lot to us, and that shows, I guess, again, your integrity in relation to collaborating with Indigenous people and women especially. So what we wanted to talk about, and again, guys, sending us products for free, you know, and that is just so it's something so important, especially when it's a grassroots initiative. So keeping that in mind, we want you guys to talk more about your compassion or your drive to develop these cross-cultural connections, and how that's a really important aspect of your brand, because as we know, the sex toy industry, like everything in our society, is very Western or white dominated, you know, so from seeing advertisement to seeing people promoting products, people using these and notions of femininity or womanhood, but in actuality they push this white narrative. So are you able to yarn to us a bit more about how important it is for you to have these cross-cultural connections, but also what drew your attention to this? Because I feel like that's a really important point, or a poignant moment for a lot of our viewers that are non-Indig. What was your moment of being like, this is something that we have to tackle? Because again, with that notion of being conscious, that's just not what we're seeing in Australia at the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah. I love that you highlighted this, and I also just want to acknowledge how appreciative we are to even be invited into this conversation with the two of you, because there's a lot of, as far as the importance of developing these cross-cultural connections, it's the most important. It's really critical to us and our business, and we, above anything, have to acknowledge that the two of us are white women, you know, and we absolutely cannot pretend to create a space that is inclusive or a space where everyone belongs if we don't include everyone in that. So it's the most important thing for us. Everything else is secondary, and there's so much fear around how we even approach conversations like this, because we know we don't want to say the wrong thing, or we don't want to, you know, hurt people's feelings, or and unfortunately then it creates spaces where we can't talk openly about these kinds of topics, and include, you know, Indigenous experiences, and include a space where those voices can be heard, and not something for us to speak on behalf of by any stroke of the imagination. So I would say that's imperative for us. But beyond that, as far as the industry is concerned, I mean, it is a patriarchal, capitalist, profit-driven industry, just as so many other things are. So when you look at the industry and actually break it down, I mean, so much of it is focused on pleasure and the experience of pleasure and liberation for white women. And that's absolutely something that we recognize as crucial to how we move forward with Flossy in creating a space where people feel like they understand what it means to be a woman and feel liberated, that's not defined by white women. So I think it's really, it's not like okay, here's the specific steps that we take, but we want to create spaces where we can have conversations about this openly, and a space where you know, we can build trust, and we can build cross-cultural connections and trust. And that's not something that we've found to be even remotely present within the industry. And there's a lot of kind of performative actions that I think we've seen brands take, and performative as in, you know, through Black Lives Matter, and having someone as a spokesperson or sort of like tokenism about this person's experience, and slapping it up as a photo on the feed, but really looking at what is the brand doing behind that to create these spaces of conversation, not in this performative way. So, I mean, Annie and I talk probably 3 times a week before we even get to the business logistics stuff, about what's going on in these spaces. What are the really relevant things that we need to be talking about, we need to be addressing, and not just from what our perspective is, but really trying to get a lot of the conversations brought forward. So I don't know if that really answers your question.
It does. So much sense. And we love that, because Ginny and I have talked about in other of our episodes, but also between us as friends, and I feel like a lot of Indigenous people, and so when you are a marginalized collective, and you as women as yourselves in this industry, we know when something's phony. you know, when we say gammon, we know when something's gammon. You can just tell when the heart's not there. And like we said, even clicking on a sex toy website, and it just kind of pops up. We're smart enough. We have the toolkit to navigate that. So I love that. With your brand, you're encouraging people to also have that critical lens and kind of be aware as well that it's in all aspects of our society. If it's sexual health, if it's buying a vibrator, or if it's buying something that's female led. So thank you for that incredible answer. A final question, guys, and what's your favorite product that you guys sell, but also what's a product, just a name off the top of your head, that you would recommend for some of our viewers that may have never bought a sex toy before, or may just be looking for something to introduce them to, I guess, self-pleasure.
Well, I can just start. So my favorite sex toy is the Melt, which is the one that we gifted Ginny.
They did.
It honestly, it was like a different kind of orgasm with the Melt. Like, I mean, I had only tried a few vibrators up until that point, and this is by far the best and most favorite. And then I think I'll have to add in like a second favorite one, is the Lawand. So that's a one style vibrator, which is intimidating to look at, because you're like, how does that work? But the head of it is basically just like a broader stimulation. And the thing is that you don't have to really worry about
there we go.
Yeah,
broader stimulation. I never knew what that was for. I thought that went in. So
yeah, exactly. And we've had people ask that question too. So that's a completely normal thing to assume. That whether like, oh, is that internal or external? But it's an external one. And the cool thing is that you can like plug it in if you run out of battery and still use it. So you don't have to be like put out in a situation where you're like, oh shit, my vibrator died. You're like, oh wait, I can plug it in. So
just participating.
I think that's my next purchase. Just saying.
I want to try that.
Look it up for you. Don't even worry. I think you asked about maybe the beginner style vibe and what what might be. So basically the whole point of Flossy was narrowing it down to, not the whole point, but as far as what we stock, figuring out what brands are really fantastic, designed in like a very sleek, approachable way, and then narrowing it down from our audience feedback of kind of the best of the best from that, from a more beginner perspective. So kind of anything that you choose is already really designed. I would say all of the vibrators are primarily for external stimulation. The main one for that is the one, I know you have, AJ, the Nova, which is both internal and external stimulation. So, but any of the smaller vibrators, I think the Bean by Rosewell is that smaller white one. I think I have it in here somewhere in my bag of tricks.
Show us.
Here is the Bean, and it's like really,
it looks like an Apple mouse.
I was about to say, you would never know.
Look at the comparison, guys.
Right.
Exactly.
You would never know.
You would never know.
Yeah, and it feels really sleek, and it's super simple. Has 5 different settings, but it's really like, it could be really powerful. You could use it kind of whichever way you want, but it's really approachable for like a first time.
I love that.
And also just really nice. Just to preface as well, so the Rosewell Bean is only available in Australia. So they are an Australian company based in Brisbane.
That's cool.
Which is so awesome. And the girls that run that company are incredible. We're friends with them. So they're making some really, really awesome products. And they want it to look like approachable and something that can be like a little bit more incognito. So you don't look at it and be like, oh, that's a vibrator. You look at it like, what's that?
What is it?
That could be something else. So
I love that. And AJ, like, you know, we were yarning before we jumped on with you guys about you know, our introduction into the sex toy industry, which again, like, I feel like in a way probably I think it's common for Black women to feel like it's not something that you necessarily talk to your friends about. I've never talked to my friends about it unless they were white.
I've never spoken about it. You
don't have a choice. Everyone just does it. But you know, I don't think I've ever spoken to one of my Black friends about like, oh,
No.
have you seen this? And I think like that's something that we, you know, the sex industry as a whole, sex education, I should say, is always, I think we spoke about this in the last episode, is that for us, it's more about sexual health and rather than the pleasure part of it. But understanding now as I've gotten older and being introduced and reading things and having conversations now that pleasure is sexual health. That is, you know, that can be sexual health for a lot of people, and trying to, you know, relearn what sexual health might mean for me. So I get really excited about sex toys now, but I know AJ's a little bit more conservative. It's not her cup of tea, but I wanted to ask you, if you don't mind,
Ask away, go on then.
AJ, do you love your new vibrator?
So guys, let's get into it. When I first saw I just thought, I opened up and I was like, I love the packaging. First of all, I was like,
oh, the packaging was great.
I know. I was just like, oh my God. I was like, yeah.
And guys,
yes, that's what I want you to feel.
Can I just say as well, like, you're getting a box in the mail that looks like anything. It could be shoes. It could be a key ring that you got from Etsy. Who knows? Could be.
You would never know.
A remote, the universal remote. You have no idea. No one knows what this is. And that's what I loved about it. I was like, wait, what the fuck is this? I literally was like,
so true.
And then I was like, oh my, as soon as I opened it, I was like, of course, like your packaging is so beautiful and
so
well thought.
Amazing.
Yeah, well thought. I was like, this is exciting, just opening the box.
And I wasn't, like you said, I wasn't scared like to pick it up. I wasn't scared to pick it up from the post office, to even have it out. Like with my daughter running around, I was just all packed up. Like she would never know. No one would know. So that's also so important. But getting into her, when I opened it up, I saw and I just thought, no way. Like so guys, it's probably like that big. So it's kind of like not as big. Like how long is it?
Caroline, do you have it?
Okay, perfect. There we go. So everyone can see now. If you're listening to this on Spotify, run to YouTube, have a little look. So when I saw I just thought, hell motherfucking no. Like I just thought, no fucking way. I was like, how does it work? I was like looking at it upside down. But then once I had it around, so it was just in my bedroom, it was whatever, I had to work through the stigmatization. So I had to walk through like, why am I so not even interested in this? Why is this like almost humorous? Like, why am I laughing at myself owning this product? So first I just looked at it obviously as something to try out for our audience. I was like, I'm just going to have a look at it, figure out how it works, all of that. I got overwhelmed. I was like, where are the buttons? Where is this happening? Because the only sex toys I've ever seen were like those olden day ones where they're like metals up the top of it, and then like the rest of it's covered in plastic, or like a plastic that looks like it's metal. You guys know what I'm talking about. Most people that saw toys probably 15 years ago know what I'm talking about. Like they had like a metal kind of where you'd press buttons. It was like a toy, guys. So like a toy. It was made of the same shit. So I was like, where is the metal? Where is this button that say on and off? I was like, where's all that shit? So I had to navigate. Literally, I was like, I can't compute. My brain has to relearn the education. But once I had a look at the incredible instructions, I worked through being nervous. I worked through being off-put. Like, hell no. Guys, I cannot live without it. Like, I will never not have that product in my life. I'm the person now that talks to relatives about it. I'm the relative now that tells
that's
people.
Exactly what we want. That's exactly what we want.
I love that.
Wait, and what do you tell them? Like, what is that conversation
I tell them,
like?
so most, I was yarning to my auntie, one of my aunts, I'm not going to get into it. She may not be my blood relation, or she may be. Blood fellas know what I'm talking about. Just an older lady.
She's someone.
It's going to come for me. Don't try and track my family members. I was talking to my auntie, but sex toys for us is bullet vibrator. For mainstream or society is a bullet vibrator, or like a dildo or a phallus type shape. And that's what they think pleasure is. So my toy doesn't fit any of those stereotypes. But in saying that, guys, I can't live without it. And it's funny, but it's also like very important as someone that is very conservative. I don't have had a lot of sexual partners. That's something that I don't believe in, just for my own safety. And guys, other things like sexual safety, emotional safety, physical safety, being in someone else's home, someone else being in your home. that's something that I've never gotten into because of
lot.
safety, and now being a mum, so I can't have a lot of these relations. So having a sex toy that I know is safe, is reliable, and honey,
that is honestly such a good way. That is actually such a good way to put it as well, for someone that doesn't want to have multiple sexual partners.
No.
To achieve basically the same goal. I mean, I wish I was a little bit more clear about masturbation and pleasure when I was younger, because then I wouldn't have done things with people that I didn't actually really want to do.
Exactly right. And we've all had this experience where we've hooked up with a guy and we're just like, oh my God, like even made out with a guy, whatever, like spend time with someone.
Why do I do that? Yeah.
But we know why.
You just because you just really horny.
What's the name of my product called again?
Nova too.
See, I don't even know what Nova is. Nova and me know each other. We're not even we know each other very well.
I love that.
I definitely can relate to you feeling very intimidated by Nova, because when we first ordered these products to try out, Caroline gave me Nova to test out first, and it sat under my bed for 2 weeks.
That's where I was at.
Yeah.
Now I can't live without it. And guys, the settings on it, I had no idea that a vibrator could do those different settings, the different control. And that's another thing I love, because every single woman's sexual desires or feeling is very different, and everything that I've ever known about a sex toy is just turn the bastard on and off, or high and low like a fucking toaster. I'm telling you, literally turn it up, goddammit, or turn it down, you fucking
I've never heard her swear so much. I feel like
I'm living for that explanation, because it's so real how we think of sex toys and the entire sex industry in such a way that doesn't actually speak to, and then you get women designing products, and it's it changes everything. And you get them involved in the conversations about what we actually want, and even Nova, the big arm of it moves. So if you have a different shape or a different, you can adjust it. How, and this is so,
it's so versatile. Yeah. Because I thought it was not shaped, guys. Let me be crystal clear. Anyone that's listening to this podcast, I did not think that it was shaped like a boru. So that's what we call, I guess, a penis. It was not shaped like that, so I just thought, is this really me?
How's that possible?
It wasn't shaped, shaped like a bullet. I just thought, how is this going to work? So I have never in a million years tried or even knew about my own body in that way. But also the other thing, guys, that I have to tell y'all, she has a setting where your partner or your friend can access that remotely. So during time, if that person is in another country or another state, bitch, she or they or them can have their little settings. And I love that, because your girl does not always need a man, but she might need a man.
Right. I love that. And do you know what's interesting, AJ, is that Caroline and Annie emailed us and said, you guys choose what you want, and I chose that because I was curious, but I was like, I don't want it for myself.
I saw that AJ ordered it, and I was like, oh wow, that's really brave.
Ginny fucking set me up. I swear.
I literally was like, this looks really interesting, and honestly, because what happened was, AJ, I said to you, the girls from Flossy said, choose a toy, and then you were like, okay, well, just whatever. And I was like, okay. And I was looking through the catalog, and I was like, I know that the melt's going to be great because that's what I like. But I looked at the Nova and I was like, this is really interesting and something that I might be a little bit intimidated to try. And AJ being the conservative one, I was like, AJ,
that is the best thing I have ever heard, though, because when I saw that email too, I was like, all right, wow.
Yeah. Oh, well, I didn't want us to get the same thing. I thought, let's give
but I can't live without it now. I just can't. I won't live without it. I'm so much,
you're welcome.
More confident.
You're welcome.
you know what I mean? Ginny is just maybe do that. Let's make that a thing, guys. Order a sex toy for your sister girl and link her up.
For real,
I think we need to make that. We need to make that normal, like buying vibrators for your friends.
Yes, listen.
Well, the ultimate self-care present.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear, Ginny, your experience.
Yes, Ginny.
I got the melt, and look, I'm not going to even lie to you, Mob. I'm not like the most. I don't have like a drawer full of sex toys, but I've got a few little things. And do you know what? It's the same. I think I was introduced to sex toys by my partner, and that was sort of like I think by him introducing it made me feel more comfortable, because I was like, okay, I don't know why.
Supported.
Because I wish, well, yeah, supported, but I wish that I felt confident enough back when I was 19, 20, curious about this industry and self-pleasure or pleasure, that I had the confidence enough then, or someone that I could have turned to or talked to or listened to that made me feel
it is hard. It is
confident.
hard that, like, if you introduce a sex toy to the bedroom, sometimes the partners aren't always supportive of that, and they like get intimidated, thinking that they're getting replaced. So I mean, I don't blame you for like not even trying to introduce that yourself. And I was the exact same. I didn't want to make my partners feel like they were inadequate or anything like that, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it.
So I guess really lucky in that I felt supported in that, in buying those sorts of products for myself. And so I got the melt. Again, love the packaging. I knew that I was going to love it because I read reviews and people were like, oh my God, best thing ever. And I was like, okay, bitch, this is for me. And the melt is really cool. I mean, it doesn't look like this is the melt.
Wow.
It's sort of like, what is that?
It's so streamlined.
Do you know what Do you know what I thought of when I saw it first? I was like, it kind of looks like, you know, Men in Black, when they do that, look into this thing and they flash.
It does though.
Yes. And you lose your memory. Listen, that's kind of what it looked like. I was like, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it feels like.
You do. You lose your mind, bitch. You lose your mind. It is pretty amazing because it blows and sucks at the same time. Is that right?
Wow.
Yeah. So
exactly.
I don't know if there's much more to be said. It blows and sucks at the same time.
Yep.
So what's good about it as well is like it's silicone. You can use it in the bath. You can use it in the shower. You can use it anywhere. You know, like it's very incognito. I like the idea as well. Like what, AJ, when you were saying, when you were describing that vibrator, I know exactly what the fuck you were talking about, because that's what you think of, and where these products 100%. Are so well thought out, I think, and like really
so true,
feels safe. But I love mine, and 2 or 3 times a week.
Amazing. I know, vibes.
I've been happy ever since. Can you believe it?
That makes me hearing your experiences about it too, like that is how we measure success, because it's not even like you using or purchasing the product, but hearing, AJ, from you about the experience of going from like, all right, the vibe is there. Then the experience between then hearing you say like, I've learned so much about my body.
So much to self, 100%.
That experience is I think.
And then also talking about it with other people as well, like that's also another huge thing, and that's what we want to do, is that we want to like create a space where like people can feel like that they can have this open dialogue, because at the end of the day we're all human. Like,
that's right. It's so
we're
true. And I felt like
the
same thing, and I felt like that when I knew I was getting the product from you guys, I knew that you had your brand is conscious. I knew that your brand is woman led. I knew that your brand isn't, you know, to exploit my desires, you know, because that's another thing. Being a Black woman, we are so exploited, you know, we are so taken advantage of. My intimacy, my body is so personal to me and private. So just the thought of a brand exploiting me in that space, and also the quality, guys. So a long time ago, I believe I was given, or I bought a product, but the thing that I stopped straight away as soon as I saw it. I think I tried it once or twice. This is like when I was in uni, guys, was the quality. So I bought an expensive product, guys. I bought it from a great website. I think me and my friend did while we're living at college. Guys, the what was that stuff that's covering the product? What's that called again?
Silicone.
The silicone, guys, it was translucent. It was so poorly made. It looked like the silicone that was put on, like coasters where you put like cups down and shit like that. Like, I remember just looking at it and it was that a bad experience traumatized me because I was like, I'm not buying this shit. And then literally putting it inside of me. So again, guys, as well, if anyone's listening to this, understand that the sex toy industry compared to 11 years ago has changed, but also buying quality fucking products because the silicone on that was like the silicone on this goddamn headphone.
Yeah. And you can tell, like you can tell when you have like a good silicone product because it feels very, very smooth. It's got a neutral smell. So that's how you can tell instantly if you've got a good quality sex toy.
So true.
Well, thank you so much. And I think, again, we just need to encourage our followers. If you are a tidder of ours or a sister of ours and you're thinking about this, I encourage you to put yourself out there just this one time. You don't need to tell anyone. You don't need to make a Facebook post like AJ said, but invest in your sexual health, which is also about pleasure. And it might be a really foreign thing to do, but as two Black women sitting here telling you right now, as people who weren't necessarily taught about these sorts of things or even talked about these sorts of things with our sisters or our aunties or our mothers or anyone, I encourage you to try it. You won't, I don't think you'll be disappointed. You might be overwhelmed, but it is has made me feel amazing. I'm not even gonna lie. But I just encourage you. Oh, if you have any questions, please follow. What's your Instagram handle? Is that Feel Flossy?
Just Feel Flossy. Yeah.
Feel Flossy. Jump on Feel Flossy, and we'll tag them in our on this podcast, but also on our socials. Please go and follow them. If you have questions, these lovely women are constantly using their platform to talk about all things sex, not just pleasure, but sexual health, sexual education. I encourage you to jump over there and follow their posts. I'm always on there looking at things. I'm like, I didn't think about it. But so good.
But before we finish, guys, do you have any quick questions for us? Because this is such a two-way learning experience. And as we said, we've got lots of non-Indigenous followers that may be, kicking in the back of their mind. They may have some questions. So do you have any questions for Ginny and I?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I was just saying before, like asking you questions, it's not something I can just Google because, I mean, I've Googled Indigenous sexual health and there's not a whole lot of stuff that comes up. And I think that just speaks volumes that it is I think it's very underserved. I correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it's so true.
So I want to know what was the sex education that you experienced and how did you feel about that?
You go first, Ginny.
Listen, I was I remember in high school, it was sort of introduced and maybe in a sexual health class, I can't tell you. And I got my dad to sign a form so that I didn't have to show up because I was so embarrassed to talk about these sorts of things. Like I was like, I cannot. And all my friends were like, it's going to be easy. It's fun. Like I couldn't tell you anything about sexual health during high school. It was so foreign to me. I was so scared of the thought of sex, and probably because of my lived experience growing up, having seen things and heard things that made me really, really sort of scared of sex as a whole. So my sexual education is not very good. It wasn't until I probably started having sex that I was like, I probably should know a little bit more about this sort of stuff. But we spoke about on our previous episode as well, like what the little bits of sexual health that I did see in a community setting was condom men and more based on don't get STDs, don't get pregnant, all the horrible worst case scenario situations. So I was scared of sex, and sometimes
and rightly so.
And sometimes I still am. Like it's I have like PTSD. Sometimes I'm like shit, like. So I think that my introduction wasn't that great, but probably in the last 5 years, I've really sort of done my own sort of education and looking up things and reading things. And you know, it took a long time. I'm 32 years old. So, you know, it took a very long time. And I still learn things about myself every day. But I guess for the most part, what I love about yarning with AJ as well, and even just since we had our last episode, is like feeling like in a way that I put myself out for other people to feel a little bit more comfortable with their their sexual educational lack thereof, or curiosity. So
yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. What about you, AJ?
Very similar, Ginny, yeah. And just I feel like public schools in Australia in a variety of ways are just so unjust in educating young people.
Absolutely.
And it's so insensitive, and there's no consideration of exposure. So not knowing anything about sex and then being exposed through a 40-minute, you know, what do they call it? Fucking PE lesson, which is really traumatizing.
And it's one time. It's like one time. You have that one time.
That's
and
it.
that's it.
I think I remember having like one sex education class, and it was just like, use a condom, don't get pregnant.
Yeah.
Didn't learn anything about the female orgasm or anything to do with women's pleasure. It was very male centric.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And I think for us as well, sorry, AG, no,
you're right.
I meant to say as well, like, sex is very, very in our culture, you know, we talk about men's business and women's business. So sexual health wasn't even catered to us in a sense that this might be very, very culturally sensitive for us as women, or very cultural sensitive to men in our culture. So to sit in a room with boys as well, like, and I know,
so true,
you know, in our lives and who we are, and I know that this is not the most ideal situation for every, you know, person in the world, that men and women should be treated the same equally, but culturally, we have a different set of rules when it comes to this sort of stuff. So sitting in a room with boys talking about my reproductive organs or like my body felt so foreign. I was like, get me out of here.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
But,
okay, ladies, so do you have any more questions or anything pushing in the back of the mind? Are we all good?
Okay, I've just got one final
question. Ask away.
Let's go.
Yeah, so I think I just want to know, like what is your opinion on masturbation? And I guess like just very briefly, like what your journey was, because I mean my journey was very conservative. I didn't masturbate until I was 23. I had no clue that you could masturbate, so I just want to know from your perspective on masturbation.
I think I as well don't think I masturbated until my 20s. And I even remember conversation with my sister. I remember she was like, and she probably will kill me for this saying this, but I have a lot of sisters, so guess which one?
I know, right?
She said something. I remember we were just out of high school and she was talking about masturbating, and I was like, ew, like, why are you talking about this? And she was like, Ginny, don't you know that this is very healthy? Masturbation is very healthy. And if you're actually sitting here and saying to me that you don't masturbate, you're a liar. And I was like, no, I actually don't. But I also was like, whoa, I feel attacked. Like, and then I was like, should I be masturbating? And, you know, I think for me, it started in my 20s. It was like probably at that point after actually losing my virginity, feeling like actually I could do something for myself that made me feel good instead of having someone else in the room doing that to me. And it was a weird journey. But now I masturbate. Am I telling you how many times? I enjoy masturbating. It's something that I do often. I think it's healthy. And I always feel good afterwards. And I wish that I had known that or heard something similar when I was younger, because for a really long time I was so uncomfortable with my own body and
so true.
myself being good. What about you, AJ?
Yeah, mine was really similar. So I've had a how do I word this? My mum and both my dad are very like cultured, like they're very traditional. So my mum's from a mission in Cherbourg, so she's greatly influenced by Christianity, but in saying that, like cultural views of indigeneity, and the same thing for my dad. So we're going to move dad out of the equation because cultural reasons, but mum is very cultured, so don't talk about sex, don't talk about masturbation, don't talk about none of that. So my whole life I never masturbated. Then I met my partner. I was lucky enough that I had a sexual partner that understood that I was very young and I didn't know a lot of information in that area when I was on this journey. So that happened, but guys, that was also a back burner, a back thing. It went the opposite way because then him and I were both very traditional in our relationship, very both two very strong culturally motivated belief system around our bodies and respecting each other sexually and limitations and things like that. But now that we are separated, and we've been separated for quite a while, that disconnection from a long-term partner like kind of pushed me into this new world of like self-pleasure and I guess masturbation, and even the word for me is uncomfortable to say because it's so taboo, guys. Like, and I want our Aboriginal women listening to this, like, do not be embarrassed. Like, it is not a bad thing. It is not dirty. It's not wrong. You are allowed to explore this. And if you have a partner that is not comfortable with it, like mine used to be, that's their belief system, if that makes sense. And we are both very different, having a man and then having a woman. But in saying that, also respect your partner's culture, also respect their belief system. Like he respected mine, I respected his, and you're not always going to get that, guys. So you're going to have different sexual partners that don't give a flying fuck about what you like or what you're not comfortable with. And that's why I like the sex toys, because I know my sex toy Rex respects me, honey, respects that I am a strong black woman and I don't take that shit, you know, like they know what time it is. They don't talk back, god damn it. And you can turn them off. You can pack them away. You don't have to listen to any, and you can put them on charge, honey. Like,
I know, it's the perfect companion.
Get it together.
Literally. So mine was really, and to this day, guys, there's a lot of stigmatization, even talking about self-pleasure and also importantly talking about a relationship that I had, because that's the thing, guys. If you're not comfortable talking about yourself sexually in a relationship, something atypical, you're not going to feel comfortable talking about yourself sexually independently, if that makes sense.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I know that, like, it's hard. I mean, I was in the same position not that long ago. It's only through Flossy that I'm actually comfortable about talking about sex now. I never used to be comfortable about it, and now we've got a sex toy company. It's crazy to me.
And I want to thank you guys as well. Like like we cannot speak highly enough about Flossy. They have been supporting us for a really long time, writing for us. They're writers, guys. But also, you know, even in just our conversation today, I was sort of like excited, but also nervous, because AJ and I have this conversation all the time. Like, I literally am, like I've said, more out there than probably AJ's, a lot more conservative than me. I'm happy to have a conversation about anything. But still, like, even just saying the word masturbation was a little bit strange for me. And I think that you guys have even opened, you know, made us feel a little bit more vulnerable, I think, in talking about these things is so important. Like, and I think that I just want to thank you guys for coming and sharing with us, and then having us open to you. And hopefully anyone who's listening to this who feel similar to us, because it was very difficult, our first episode. Now this one, I'm like, Jesus Christ. But
I'm excited.
We got to get through this, you mob. Like, it is an important part of life. And I'm so glad that I'm at where I'm at. And even just AJ talking about it, I'm like, girl.
I know, be proud of me, girl, because it ain't easy.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
It's an honor.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Well, we'll let you go. Thank you so much for coming. And we will talk soon. Yeah.
For sure.
Sounds great. Definitely.
Thank you, ladies.
Right.
Bye.
Okay, guys, so thank you so much for listening to this incredible interview with our guests today, Annie and Caroline. But Ginny and I wanted to take a little bit of time for a debrief, because as I was saying earlier in the episode, you guys have to understand how big this is for us. You know, you guys, we want to really reiterate to our non-Indigenous followers how this is such a not even taboo, it's a cultural topic for us. You know, it is a part of our identity, it's a part of the way we're raised as Aboriginal people. But also what we need to understand, again, like I was saying earlier, is the impacts of colonization on our identity and on our understanding of our bodies. Both Ginny and I went to public schools, and the sexual education that you learn is actually horrendous. It does not have any cultural sensitivities or preferences or family structures. So let's talk about that, Ginny. How are you feeling after the episode? What do you want our followers to really take away from this? And at the end of the day, we're talking about or we're promoting a brand and encouraging you guys to explore self-pleasure, but also in saying that, feel comfortable enough to talk about these topics.
Yeah, I think for the most part, like I have like this little bit of adrenaline because I feel like I just put myself out there, and without even probably knowing that that was what was happening, because you know, we every time we come on here, I think we want to have open conversations. We want to have conversations that make other people feel comfortable about maybe some of the questions that they have or experiences that you know, you guys might have. So I have a little bit of adrenaline, and then a little bit of me now is like after shame. Does that make sense? Like now I'm a little bit like, oh fuck, we just talked about masturbation.
I know. And we felt like that when we talked about sex though. Like I remember Ginny and I for so long like that. Guys, we always catch up about it, episodes. Like we always say, oh fuck, that was deadly. But sex was like kind of the topic. We're like, we're done now. Like we did a great job. It's over now. Do you know what I mean?
And that's what I mean. I think that for now I feel a little bit of aftershame only because and you know, it's weird for me because I think like a lot of people who know me know that I'm pretty open book. Like if we're having a little sip of wine or we're talking and I'm yarning with my friends or whatever, like I have no shame. People will say, oh, Ginny has no shame, and I don't. But there is that level of me that is like culturally,
that's it,
making, you know, culturally checking in. So
still checking in.
But I knew that,
sis, you say you're not, you say, oh, I'm open and I'm wild, but you're not wild like the girls I went to college with.
No,
you know what I mean? The white
I'm not wild like my white friends.
No, you're not wild like that, sister girl.
No, I'm like wild for a black fella.
Yes.
But do you know what I mean? Like I think now checking in is so important as well, like because it's what I guess keeps us all accountable. But I think I liked what you said at the start of the episode, AJ, about, you know, that my views of sex and sexual health and self-pleasure are you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Warped by colonization. That this may not necessarily be a cultural thing, but more of a white shame fetishization thing. So I'm trying to work through that, but I am really happy about the conversation we had, because I do feel like if this makes anyone else feel comfortable about self-pleasure, then we did what we came to do. And also I want us to feel comfortable about how we feel about our bodies, you know?
That's right. And I think the thing is, like what I love to yarn about today, first 2 points are, I wish I saw 2 older women or women even my age when I was growing up talk about this. Like if 19-year-old Alicia, when she first got in a relationship with my partner, my ex-partner now, if I knew that, if I heard an older sister or someone like talk to me about sexual things, self-pleasure, my body, what I like, exploration, my whole relationship with my partner, but also independently, the last 10 years of my life would have been very different. You know, so getting to be 30 now, guys, and it's like, oh, now I'm comfortable. That's not good enough, because if other races in Australia and predominantly white people in this country feel confident enough, feel comfortable, and so they should, everyone should feel like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's not the reality.
Yeah. And I think it's about if you feel like you've thought about buying a sex toy or experimenting or wanting to have self-pleasure or feel that, then I want people to feel comfortable doing that. And if I had to put my little leg out and do what I just did,
that's it.
Talk about masturbation and all kinds of stuff. I'm so grateful for the girls at Flossy for coming over and having no shame to ask us those questions, because I was like, okay, but important, because it is natural and it is something that we as women do. So here we are.
Yeah. And that's the reality, Ginny. We all do it. All women, even if they're not talking about it, like your aunties, your mom, your sister, or even your partner, if you're listening to this, they have needs, they have desires, they have wants. That's fucking normal. But the fact that Aboriginal women, from my lived experience, from me being one, don't feel comfortable, that's really sad to me, because again, it's like Aboriginal women are cut off from being able to, enjoy our own bodies and our own identities, if that makes sense. And another thing, guys, which we did touch on the episode, but another point that I want to hone in here is, never in my fucking life did I think that I would be sitting here telling you about me using a sex toy or a masturbation project. But bitch, because
it was kind of like a project.
It's been a project. I never thought. I would have thought, get the fuck out of here. Like, there's no way. And Ginny's exactly. If you would have put this to us 8 months ago, there was no fucking way. And that speaks about the integrity in our work, guys. But we want to talk about safety. I want young girls to know, and especially Indigenous women to know, having intimate partners opens you up to a lot of vulnerabilities. We just went through a fucking pandemic, having someone in your home, being a single mom, STIs, all of the above, right? And finding a connection, right, in any capacity can be really hard. So a sex toy is a great alternative to keep yourself safe.
I think that's all that needs to be said. But, at the end of the day, we hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please, rarely have I ever heard of a sex toy company ever reaching out to Black followers and wanting their opinions and wanting to hear about how they can help the Indigenous community in any way, shape or form. So I'm really grateful for having Annie and Caroline come over and talk to us and ask us questions, make us feel a little bit uncomfortable and put ourselves out there. That was, I think important, scary, but important.
So true.
If you have ever thought about getting a sex toy or ever thought about, educating yourself in that space, please follow the Feel Flossy girls. They're doing something that you won't see many other people doing.
No.
It is very safe space. It's very incognito. It is not loud and, in your face. No. You don't have to wave a flag saying, I just touched myself today.
I know.
You don't need to do all of that. These girls, Feel Flossy, the girls at Feel Flossy have got you ready. So covered, sis.
And we'll be buying from them again. Ginny and I both said we'll be buying from them with our own money again if we want to, because they delivered.
They came through. But so jump on, they're on Instagram. They also have a website. It's feelflossy.com. If you have questions, if you want to know more, please head over to their website, give them a follow, ask the questions, let us know what you think, because we are excited to hear what other people hear. Yeah, what other people think. But if you don't, that's okay too, because guess what, bitch? Your body, your choice.
Ariana.
Do what you want to do.
Period.
All right, let's get out of here. Bye.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Unapologetically Blak. Be sure to follow us on our Instagram at unapologeticallyblak. You'll find our merch, contact details, and content in the link tree of our Instagram bio. In the meantime, please share, like, and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels. As Black creators, we're incredibly grateful for your support. Big love, take care, and yarn next week.